Okay, so I'm with Martin from the Morgan Owners Club,
Hello.
and you're going to tell us about this car, which you've built.
Yes.
And is this a replica of the first car or something like that?
I'd like to think of it as a recreation rather than a replica.
Okay,
The term replica has...
Wash my mouth out with soap and water, yeah.
Basically, none of the original cars from 1910 have survived.
Right.
Hardly surprising. As far as we know, Harry Morgan only built about 20 of them.
Right.
I've recently done a huge amount of research into the early years of the company.
Yep.
And as a result of that, I produced a book, which has recently been published. As a parallel project, I thought it would be fun to find out what it was like to drive one of the original cars.
Sure.
None existed, so I proceeded with the project that you see here. The chassis, well, that is an original 1914, 1915 era chassis,
right,
which I retrieved from a farm in France.
Oh, wow.
Rather grumpy French farmer. We did a deal with him.
I wonder how you ever found it. I mean, that's the question. I'm sure that's a story in itself.
Yeah.
We won't go there.
It was obviously a bit bent and a little bit rusty, so some of the tubes had to be replaced, but basically the chassis is...
presumably the chassis was very close to the original car chassis.
That's right, yeah. Not a lot changed, but obviously 1914 it would have been a two-seater, so a little bit wider. There are one or two examples of original two-seaters, so I thought I'd go with the single-seater. So we stored the chassis. The engine is an original 1910 engine. We know that from the serial number.
Wonderful.
And together with things like the Brown and Barlow carburettor, the Bosch Magneto.
And that's what would have gone into Morgan in 1910.
Exactly.
1910.
And just about every mechanical aspect of this is genuine pre-First War parts. Yeah. I've been meticulous in that I've not decided to use some 1920s parts, but go with some original.
Sure.
Obviously, it took many years to accumulate the necessary parts, and then through a process of examining all surviving photographs.
Presumably, you didn't have any original drawings then. You just had to go off photographs.
I've got two original drawings from 1910, but those are of a halfway state, halfway between the prototype and the first production.
Right.
So the drawings are slightly different from.
So you had to. Creative a little bit.
A lot of trial and error.
Sure.
We had to chop and change. Actually, had to chop a few inches out of the chassis to meet the 1910 shape and that sort of thing. The bodywork, obviously, none had survived. So the bodywork was created by the Morgan Motor Company panel beater.
Right.
Very, very talented chap called Dave Cale, and he did the bodywork for me.
So that was a sort of weekend project for him, was it?
Sort of, yes. He now makes bodies for Alfa Romeos and Bugattis and all sorts of wonderful Fagoni and Falaschi style of bodies.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Fortunately, I got him before he put his prices up. But anyway, this is the culmination of many years of hard work, and it's been running now for the past 5 years or so.
Right.
Not yet road registered, although I'd like to think that the fact that I'm on an original chassis and so many genuine original parts, the DVLA will be kind to me and allow me on.
Got to go through various ministry people to get to it. Yeah.
And I've taken it to various motoring events. Festival of Sloth, which is a wonderful event for cycle cars. Montclair Vintage Revival.
Right.
Again, a fabulous event over in Paris.
Yes, I know Monterey.
And this is circulated around the Bank racetrack. It's done several laps around Montclair.
Yeah.
Probably getting it up to 55 miles an hour or thereabouts, something like that. Oh, it flies when it's going.
Right. I wouldn't have imagined it would go that quickly.
Might have gone even quicker, but that's when my sense of self-preservation kicks in, you know. No, it's very light. It's got a decent V-twin engine up front, so it does go quite nicely. Just two-speed transmission, standard Morgan transmission, two changed.
And looking at it, how do you steer it?
With the tiller.
Right.
If you think about it, with a narrow monocar, where do you put the steering column?
Sure.
You know, the main chassis tube is in the way. You either have to go left or right. Then you've got a steering column and a big steering wheel. Makes it awkward to get in and out.
And is that difficult to get used to, or do you find
it? Not at all. You see the angle of it, it falls nicely under your right arm.
Right.
And if you want to go around the corner, you just lean to the right, lean to the left, and the car follows where you're going. So it's actually very intuitive, very easy to steer.
Right.
The throttle is that little lever there.
Right.
And as you can see, you can leave it in one position, cruise control, there you go. Not a problem. The other lever, that's the mixture.
Right.
A little bit like a choke on a classic car.
So it's rich to start it and then you chuck it back.
Yeah. So, and then that lever there is magneto advanced retard.
Right.
And if you move it all of the way, it's also the valve lifter, and it lifts the exhaust valves. So when you're trying to start the car on the handle, you're not trying to fight against the engine compression.
Right.
So makes the engine easier to turn over, and then you just lift that lever, the engine comes onto compression, pop, 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 away it goes. And of course, when you're talking about the starting handle, people instantly start looking at the front. No, it plugs into the side of the car, connects with the cross shaft.
Right.
So you're turning the engine over through the cross shaft.
So almost from the back.
That's right, yeah. Through the bevel gears, through the prop shaft, and turn the engine over through the transmission that way.
Yeah. Interesting. And are they foot pedals or are they just stops of some sort?
No, on the left there you've got the clutch.
Right.
The clutch is just a bronze casting that operates within the cast flywheel, immediately behind the engine.
Right.
The right-hand pedal operates one of the band brakes at the back. The other band brake on this side is operated by...
is that sort of like a handbrake and a foot brake, or are they supposed to be used in unison?
They will be used together. There's no ratchet to keep the handbrake on. There's no handbrake as such. But as you can see, that lever operates the contracting band. So these are drum brakes, but rather than being internally expanding, they're externally contracting.
Yeah, got you. Yeah.
Pretty ineffective in the dry, hopeless in the wet.
Is that right?
So although this thing flies along at a very satisfying rate of knots, you've got to think well ahead.
Yeah.
You've got to look well ahead and predict any conflicts, because the stopping power is poor.
Yeah, as with any ancient car, I mean,
I've raced this up Prescott Hill Climb.
Right.
And it flew up to the top. The scariest bit was coming down the return road because I didn't have the braking.
Right.
And Shelsley is even worse.
Yeah.
But there you go. It's no, it isn't original, but it is about as authentic as you can get.
Yeah. No.
And it's given me a huge amount of fun over the last few years.
Not just making it, but then running it.
Next year, hopefully it'll be on the road, so I can use it on the open road.
Excellent.
And it will keep up with modern traffic. The trouble is, if the modern traffic hit the brakes, I'm going to have to improve the braking. I think it's a question of changing the friction material, and altering the angle of the levers just to get the maximum braking out of it. But it's a huge amount of fun to drive.
Yeah.
Once you're used to it, it's very easy to drive. It's not as scary. It's not as difficult as
not
a lot of people think.
I suppose the engine's a fairly standard engine. It's not.
Oh, it is. Yeah.
Nothing special about the engine particularly.
The prototype had a V-twin Peugeot engine from France, but when Harry Morgan decided to go into production, it was obvious a lot easier to use a British-made engine. So John Alfred Prestridge, JAP, the Jap engines, we started using those, and. As I say, that one's a nice original 1910 engine. You can tell the very early ones, they've got a bronze timing cover.
Right.
A couple of years later, they had either a cast iron or cast aluminium timing cover. So that is a very early engine. It's completely shot when I got it.
Right.
Very rare, but I had to acquire it when I did. I swapped an absolutely beautiful 1914 engine.
Right.
That it was almost out of a crate. It had almost no wear on it at all.
Wow.
But it wasn't quite the right engine for this. So I swapped it with a friend who had a 1910 engine. He had this beautiful, almost brand new 1914 engine. I had...
Presumably he was in the better bargaining position.
He was, yes. I had an engine that had seen...
He knew you had to have that engine.
Many thousands of miles, but... good friend restored the engine, and it's chugging away very nicely.
Lovely. Okay. So, well, thank you very much for talking to us. And
it's been my pleasure.
It was really interesting.
Right.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Cheers. Thank you.